My name is Chris Kinney. I'm the Associate Director of Disability Services here at JMU. Back in the fall of 1987, I had a significant mental health issue, mental health event, and because of that, I ended up homeless. I was homeless for a number of months, and then I had an insecure living situation for a number of years. From there, it wasn't like a situation where like I was homeless. It was like first I lost my power, then gas, then I finally lost the place I was living in. So I lived in my truck for a while. What I did was I would find these isolated places out in the woods, and that's where I would sleep. Eventually, I was able to get a job at Walmart, and then what I discovered is that if I worked two jobs, I'd have more money. Summer of 1988, I worked on a garbage truck. I was paid about $5.25 an hour. And the funny thing is, everybody thinks you ride on the garbage truck, like you just ride on the back, which was kind of fun. But what you do is you run alongside the garbage truck, throwing the cans in, and then maybe ride to another neighborhood. So I would probably run about 4 or 5 miles a day on this garbage truck. And this was in, like I said, Alabama during the summer. It was about 95 degrees. And I would just be, you could wring out the sweat at the end of the day. And I would go take a shower real quick, wash the garbage off, and go to Walmart. Once again, they worked me about 38 hours, just enough to where I could get like full time, but not benefits. And the other thing is because I was the newbie, I always had to jump in the dumpsters to scrape the bottom of the dumpsters, which was always pretty disgusting. Yeah, and I just had this epiphany that if I didn't do something, I would be doing this for the rest of my life. We were out cutting brush on the side of the road one day because we had kind of finished up our route early, and I just I'm not doing this anymore. Got myself in. And this was at Jacksonville State University, so this was in Jacksonville near Anniston. And I was able to get a student loan, and I started. And so the thing about college is, for a person with a learning disability or ADHD, this is not our natural environment. It's a struggle. You're constantly being bumped. It's like you're getting information through a fire hose, and because of our processing deficits, it's always difficult just to keep up and just to do the work. So the thing that I did was I just did the best I could, but there are times I would, flunk a semester or something, and I would start over again. Started off at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and I got involved in the TRIO program there, which is kind of like LSI. And I also got sponsored by Alabama Vocational Rehabilitation, which works with people with disabilities and trying to help them find work. Part of what they do is also pay for college. So your career is you need college, they'll pay for that. Virginia, by the way, I'm recommending this, has a very nice vocational rehabilitation. It's the Department of Aging and Rehabilitation Services. The office here in Harrisonburg does a great job of working with college kids. So they sponsored me, they paid for school, and eventually I learned to be an okay college student. I graduated in 1996, so like I said, a long time. Then I went to the University of Alabama to get my master's in vocational rehabilitation and became a VR counselor. And that took all of 2.5 years. So I actually became a good college student. And then I started working as a disability services provider, and I've been doing that for 20 years. My secret was just stand up. I was a big runner when I was in high school, and one thing my dad taught me was, it's like if you feel like you're about to pass out, especially if you're running in the heat, it's just like, don't sit there and try to think about, I'm going to run a mile. Think about, I'm going to run to that telephone pole, and then I'll quit when I get to the telephone pole. And then when you get to the telephone pole, it's like, I'm going to run to that tree. When I got knocked down, sometimes I would crawl, sometimes I'd stay on the ground for a while, but I would just get up. And a lot of times my goals were very simple, like get out of bed, go to work, go to the supermarket and get some ramen noodles, just simple things. And then those built up to bigger things like finish this class, take your exam, do some study. And my big motivational treat was barbecue. So there's this place in Birmingham called Dreamland, and all they served was white bread and ribs. And so I'd get a half slab and I would take it back to my little apartment and just feast on ribs. And that was my big thing. And I tell students that all the time. It's like, what is your thing that you love to do? Do the hard work you need to do, and then treat yourself after. The TRIO program helped a lot. So I was able to work with tutors. They also had a counselor there that I could talk to. I think one of the most interesting experiences was I always felt like, I was a horrible student. And I still have that. I am not the best student, but I loved art history and I love history. And I remember my very first art history class, my professor, Dr. Schwarrenberg, he would sit with me after class and talk to me. And he took an interest in me, and we would talk about art and we talked about these things. And he would take us on these field trips to various buildings in Birmingham. We would look at things. And I just okay, I can be a student. I'm a first generation college student, so it's not something that we were taught growing up. So I would learn things from different people, but it wasn't like I would sit in a program. And my VR counselor was very old school. He said, "Chris, how are your grades this semester?" And I said, "Well, I didn't know what to get into my Alabama accent." I said, "Well, I'm doing pretty good. I'm making C's and B's." He's like, "Well, you need to get up to some B's or we can't sponsor you." And so it wasn't like he was teaching me how to be a college student. It was just making sure that I was meeting the requirements so I could stay within the program and get the money for school. When I was working on that garbage truck and I was cutting brush in 95-degree heat, and I realized I would be doing this for the rest of my life if I didn't do something. And so it was always like, having those experiences of being extremely poor and homeless, that leaves a mark on you. The motivation was always there because I knew what would happen if I flunked out of school. It wasn't something I could just oh yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. It's just too hard. Working on a garbage truck is hard. During college and other places, I found some good people that would help me out. I think that's the other thing too, is there are people out there that will help you, but you have to reach out and ask for help. Yeah, there's this saying from this show I watch, and I'm a big sci-fi nerd fantasy, and it was Firefly. One of the things they used to tell each other is if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, find someone to carry you. And that happened to me a lot. I did find people that would carry me for a while. Just give me enough energy so I can get back up and keep going. I like working with students, and if people need help, they can always come by. The office, there are a number of people at This Point Services that would love to help you. We all care about students.